See what happens. We're here. Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Here we go.
I just heard Brandon's voice.
Good to go?
Yeah.
I think you have to hit pause.
It's now streaming live, it says. Hey, there you go.
Oh,
All right, so
there we go.
It always does that.
I love when I'm Zoom control. I'm going to admit Martin. So here he comes. Everybody, thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about warehousing today. So TJ is going to be hopping on here in just a moment, but we did invite Martin. Martin, it's nice to meet you.
Hello, nice to meet you. Likewise, Nicole. How you doing?
Good. I did a little background searching on you, and I see that you're a fellow Texan, huh?
Yeah. Born
You're
and
in
raised.
Houston?
Yes, ma'am. Born and raised.
Nice. Well, I'm a newer transplant. I'm 1 year in living in Texas, but I live in Dallas, and I absolutely love it.
We were up there for the World Series a few weeks ago, my wife and I.
Yeah.
We drove there and we had a hotel that we had stayed that we had booked, but it ended like at 11, so we're like going to drive back, and she's like, "Yeah, I can make it." I'm like, "All right." So we drove back.
Nice. There's a lot of stuff to do down here. Tony, have you ever been down to Dallas?
Yes, I used to live in Austin. I met and married my wife in outside of Austin.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, me and Martin were just talking about that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
now
now he's in Indiana.
Yeah, I was in a little town called Marble Falls.
Oh, I got you.
You know what? Ever since I saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I guess that kind of spooked me to going towards that side. And my wife and I looked at some land once, and I was like, "Yeah, no, not that side, please, not that side." But then it's just me, like I'm I'm a scared person.
That's way out in West Texas.
Glad you didn't die from that. Oh. Terrible. Yeah. So again, we're hosting a show today in regards to warehousing. So Martin would love to hear a little bit on your background and tell us how you got into transportation first. And then we want to hear some of your background in regards to really what your day looks like in the warehousing sector.
Yes, ma'am. A friend of mine that was a truck driver got me into shipping and receiving warehouse. That's really how I started. I was 18 years old, and I was about to. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I had zero experience. I didn't know what a container was. I didn't know what a pallet was. Mm-hmm. I had zero like nothing experience, zero. And I remember them asking me, they're like, "Do you know what a truck driver is?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know what a truck driver is." And they're like, "That's all you need to know." I'm like, "I promise you, the paperwork comes with everything." And the warehouse, seeing the drivers come in and then seeing the warehouse aspect, I guess at such an early age, and then doing that for a few years, you get to see both sides of it. That helped me. But the shipping and receiving, and because of a truck driver friend of mine, that he was looking out for me. It's like he said, he's like, if you want to make a good living, he's like, or have a career of some sort, he's like, just come help. Because I actually worked at a grocery store for a long time, and then a pawn shop before I got into the shipping and receiving place. So it was interesting.
That's how it was for everybody. When you step in, you start understanding the whole dimension of what transportation is. And it starts off with the concept of, do you know what a truck driver is? It's like, yeah. Do you know what a tractor trailer is? It's like, yeah, you do. And then you start getting involved in the day-to-day operations. And that's where you tend to be the most successful. When you're
when they moved me to the transportation side, I mean, because I got the shipping and receiving down within about 3.5 years. And then when they moved me to the transportation side, the person that was going to train me quit like the second day. But I didn't know that their intention was for me to be their replacement.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of bad to do to someone, both the person coming in and the person that, because neither one person knows what to do or what to expect, or because I was put in a position to
brand new in the fire, figure it out, right?
I mean, that's I guess the best way to learn. That's for me at least.
Yeah.
But it was hard. It was a hard few years at the beginning in the transportation side. But leaning to drivers and to other trucking companies. Honestly, I remember there was a company that there was a girl, because of being in the warehouse and the shipping and receiving side, you get a lot of trucking companies that call you. Hey, I have 3 loads coming in. I have 3 drivers going at 10 o'clock. Can you help, unload them real quick? Because that was like an 83 dock door warehouse. So coming into shipping and receiving at the beginning and having an 83 dock door facility to take care of, I had no idea of the understanding of the magnitude of that.
Yeah.
So when I finally understood what it was and I got it, I thought that trucking would be easy. No, way
What do you think that is? What do you think that number one holdup is that makes trucking so complicated?
Regulation, number one.
Okay.
Different states have different laws. Like for instance, with the overheight, Texas is 14, Oklahoma is 13.6, Louisiana is 13.6. So a lot of customers, they'll think that, it's, for instance, like Louisiana. A friend of mine said, I don't do business in Louisiana. I'm like, why not? He's like, it's not that I don't like the DOT. He's like, it's you never know what they're going to find on you. He's like, the paperwork, because they're very knowledgeable. DOT in Louisiana is very knowledgeable. Even if you have your truck in order and your paperwork is wrong, they're going to get you for something. And a lot of times drivers, they don't really like an MSDS or an IMO. They'll oversee something or they might not see. So the good thing for us is to tell the drivers, hey, send me that IMO before you move. Let me take a look at it.
I'm going to stop you, Martin, because there are some people that might not know what an MSDS is or an IMO. So what are those 2 documents?
Intermodal. My God, I was doing something on a video the other day on it. Intermodal something. I apologize. I can't think.
Is this
basically? It's an organization. It's an organization, a world organization that gets together and they do all the paperwork and make sure that everything's in order for it to go across the country or across the world. That's really what the port requires for us to have. A lot of times what happens is the warehouse, there's 2 different processes. On an import container, whoever's giving us, the broker, the customer, I'm sure they have to have the IMO, because somewhere along the way, the port requires an IMO in order to accept that container.
Okay.
So when you go to pick up the container, they're not going to ask you for anything other than the container number. But the people who might ask you for it is the DOT officers. Now, the MSDS, which is the Material Safety and Data Sheet, that you don't necessarily need because you can put the book, your hazmat book, in place as the MSDS. So sometimes we get a lot of customers that'll give us the whole MSDS packet, and you don't necessarily need it. You just need the 1 IMO or the 2, 3, 4 sheets, because if it does say page 1 of 1, page 2 of 3, whatever, you need them all.
Checking.
Those are the things that
I did want to ask you, Martin, too. So we're talking about your early career in trans and warehousing and your kind of growth within it. When did it really transform for you to where you are really like managing a warehouse? And is that a current position that really took you to that level, or was it something from your past?
No, well, we wanted to open up our own business for a few years, and what happened is we had gotten into business with some friends of ours, and it went south. The partnership went south, and they had a warehouse, and basically we lost revenue at that time because we didn't have a warehouse and they did. So we had to go back to square one, and we thought, should we get a warehouse? Should we not get a warehouse? Is that something we want to join or jump in? Sorry, that's my wife. She's mad. Something happened with the load here earlier before we logged on. But we didn't know if we wanted to get into the warehousing space because both my wife worked at a huge warehouse, in her early years, and I worked at a huge warehouse. So we both had the shipping and receiving and the trucking industry knowledge. It was just, do you want to, take that extra leap? And we went to a 30,000 square foot warehouse at the beginning. We actually had a little, good deal on it, and we had a little bit of work to do with it. But, it was hard at the beginning. It's still hard now, but it's mainly, like I said, regulations and paperwork.
Okay.
That's the things that a lot of people don't want to do, or the harder part, I think, because that's what takes the most time to learn.
That's the same with truck drivers. The greatest truck drivers in the world that can't do paperwork are not great truck drivers. I mean, you just have to have your ducks in a row on every aspect.
I hate paperwork.
Everybody hates. Everybody hates.
I think I was on like a 16-month streak of number one in the office. I think it was number one in the company for a while for most missing rate cons. I was booking a shit ton of freight, and I wasn't putting any rate cons in or like following up with paperwork. And with production comes flexibility, but
no, I mean the paperwork side, like for instance, in we try to tell the drivers, let us help you. Like for instance, we have the technology now. We have the ELDs, right? The electronic logs, and now we have e-rigs in our side that we can have the manual PODs in their, not the manual POD. I'm sorry, the on their tablets where they can sign off. It's already written there for them. They don't have to have anything done. They just basically have somebody sign it for them. But even then, we have a lot of drivers that don't want to use the technology that much, So we struggle still with that. But I mean, as far as the warehouse goes and the trucking side goes, everybody, like, I lost track of time. My wife, trust me, my wife was not happy. We had a last 3-day container that the driver, he's a new driver of ours, and I'm patient. She's not that patient. I'm very patient, and we missed the last 3-day container today, which now we have to pay storage on it at the port to get it out tomorrow. So we're out of pocket. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to teach the driver too. I don't want to. I'm not the type of person that, I know the customer might get upset, but I'm not the type of person that just because a driver did something wrong, like for instance, his truck broke down. He hadn't done nothing all week because his truck broke down, and then finally today his truck comes back up. Now it's Thursday and Friday. He's not gonna make a lot of money, but salvage something if he can. And
so tell us, Martin, like what today your current role and what you're doing. Like tell us a little bit about that and the size of the warehouse and just some details in regards to the operation that you're running in Houston right now.
Yes, ma'am. Well, we have basically all owner-operator based truck drivers. We don't own our own trucks. That's another side of things that we've been talking about, but because of the warehouse, we've decided for a few years dedicate more to the warehouse than to the truck side of things for a lot of reasons. We do, like I say, primarily containers. We're able to do dry vans. We're able to do flatbeds. We can do quite a bit of things. It's can our drivers do the work too? We don't want to take on freight that a customer might give us, but our drivers don't have the experience to do it, and then we go and possibly damage something or hit a.
So are you offloading containers and then putting the stuff into a warehouse and then
Yes,
transloading them later?
Correct. Yeah, we do have, like I said, we have the trucks. We bring it to the warehouse. We transload it. Sometimes we have, like for instance, tomorrow we don't have a reefer warehouse, a refrigerated warehouse, but there are customers that are just moving something right away and they don't need to store it. And I know cold storage is very expensive at times. So if you're able to just align it with us and program it, we can get it out at a decent time to where we can unload it from one trailer and right onto the other trailer without, it takes about, if it's a palletized load, it takes about 40 minutes to do, 45 minutes to do. So, you just get charged the regular transloading rate, no storage or, what is it, the electric bill that they charge you sometimes.
When are you going to get a crane and just swap containers on chassis?
That's what I'm working on, believe it or not. Honestly, it's within our business. That's what we do. The thing is, the yard space. A lot of drivers they want to park in your yard. They want to save that parking space. So I'm trying to be as helpful to them as possible and flexible, because I also told them that real estate is not cheap. So you want to use as much as that real estate as possible to make profit off of it. And it's like I told them, you have let's say you have a 30,000-pound forklift outside, just for whatever. You have to use it outside. You have to do stuff with it outside. If you have trucks that are blocking it, you're not going to be making money. And I had a friend of mine that had a yard, and they were constantly blocking his forklifts. And I'm like, well, you're losing money now, man, because it takes there. Sometimes the drivers would go out of town for 2-3 days, So I'm trying to have it to where I can be flexible with everybody and accommodate everybody, both the customers and the drivers.
So how many doctors are you operating on your own right now? What's that square footage?
Drivers?
Oh, no, your actual warehouse.
It's a 30,000 square foot warehouse. We have 2 docks. We have 3 docks, but one of them we only use for staging because it's an old building, so they just the way trucks used to be back then are very small. So, that's a part of the building that we got to work on.
Anybody with any experience has had those docks, man. There's a lot of those in Chicago.
Yeah, man, it's funny because one of them is actually shorter than the rest, and you're like, "What do you do with that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, there's trucks back then that were not this tall, It was
all
funny.
the trees that grow around it. I used to stand out. I worked for a company that was based in West Chicago, Illinois, and we were like tucked behind this industrial area. And I used to watch these guys, and I'm like, oh, this power line might go out because a lot of the stuff just hangs, watching that. But I did want to ask you too, like with COVID and all the things going on, have you seen more of an increase of business due to that? Or
it was interesting in March when it really hit, and I guess nobody really understood what it was. We actually had the city of Houston go to the warehouse. They were going to the streets and checking businesses out. They closed everybody around us but us. And it just so happened by the grace of God that day we had 2 loose load containers of rice. So we were able to say that, we were part of we were helping with the pandemic because of food, because it was part of, I guess relief effort or whatnot. So we were able to stay open, but they did show up to businesses. They did close. I personally saw the next businesses, a few of them next to us, where the city was either writing them a ticket or something, but they were writing something down. But it helped us when it went. I guess it increased a little bit. Some people were closing, so our storage became the issue. We had a lot of things that we were storing because a lot of places were closing. Or a lot of things that happened. Well, since we were a smaller company, I think those larger companies were closing. So there were, I don't know, maybe I'm just speculating, but because of that, we were able to keep our doors open and at least have a little bit more business. I know on the loose load side of things, that really picked up. Furniture definitely picked up. It was we were doing a lot of furniture for a big company with an A. I won't say the name, but it was going to Little Rock, Arkansas, and to Memphis, Tennessee.
I already know it. Yeah.
Somewhere else. We were doing a lot of that furniture here.
I would assume because people were at home all day and they were staring at stuff.
Yeah,
we had we were able to help a little bit. So the way our office is set up is we own like the whole building. There's a renter on the way other side, but like when you walk in the front doors, there's it's almost like an L-shaped warehousing, cement floor, and then you can walk into the actual office. There's 2 docks. We don't really use them that much, but we had, because a lot of people were closed, we had at one point, I think we had somewhere around 40 or 50 pallets of hand sanitizer that we had stored there. And then we basically moved this one guy's desk. We have a project. I think it was for, I can't remember who the customer was, but it was a pretty big A customer that needed the storage because people were closed. And so we moved his desk out there, got him like the rolls with the stickers. And so like the UPS guys would literally come to our warehouse, pick up X amount of boxes, and we'd take them out, take them off the pallet. And, that's not like something we really do. Like we don't do, but there was, nobody could do it.
Yeah. No, right now we're still doing a lot of hand sanitizers, but we're delivering straight to like stores, like grocery stores, or, I guess dollar stores, for instance.
Are you delivering for the customer that you have that's storing the material with you, or are you delivering for
different customers? Everyone's
like
different.
you're not buying the material and warehousing it.
No.
Cool. So do you run trucks out of this warehouse?
Huh?
Do you run trucks out of the warehouse under your own?
Yes, sir.
Cool.
So that's what I say. Like that's why we're able to do a little bit more, because we don't broker, we don't outsource anything. We do everything ourselves. Okay. So I guess a lot of the time, and that's what a lot of our customers like that they're dealing with us and our drivers. We're not, it's like not a third party or anything like that. Like a lot of our customers get mad if we were to broker something, unfortunately. Sometimes we need help and we need to ask another truck driver of ours or another friend of ours, hey, I got this load that I can't cover for tomorrow. Can you help me?
That's a huge discussion I'm having with a lot of customers right now. I've got a decent, I'll send it to you, but it's worked so far. I'm like 5 for 5, but just having that straight up discussion, just straight up, like, for us, we're very, very automotive based. So, our big automotive customers have always allowed us to do that because they know that if I've got a driver that breaks down and I'm going to shut a Ford plant down, I mean, that's a lot of money, you know what I mean? So, but you just can't have any other carrier either. So they know that if you're doing that type of thing, that you're sourcing it right, you're sourcing it correctly. You got to have Tom and his brother's got 2 trucks down the road. You know where they're at. You know they're over by Lima. You know this guy's here. You call him at midnight. He can go save you. He's going to make $3,000, but it doesn't matter. It's better than 45K. And so I kind of approached it that way of, hey, that's how we source it. We dispatch them just like they'd be our trucks, but we're able to bring that capacity, to you guys. And it's something that you don't have to continue with, but at least right now, if you want to start, it gets you in the door. And then if they like it, you may be able to continue to do so.
Well, I think that happens in regards to how things are going with capacity. So you're going to have a lot more flexibility in today's day and age than you might have in 6 months from now. Yeah. And the reason why I say that is if that goes back to the customer and they have to resource that and create a solution immediately, that's a big challenge for them right now. And that cost is huge. So TJ is right. You're also presenting them with an option to create a solution, which shows that you value that partnership.
Right. And you're knowing
on the approach,
like and you're knowing, again, I've talked before, knowing what they're doing and what they're thinking, so when you have that conversation saying, hey, I can do this, I can have it laid out however you need to have it laid out, with whatever it is that you feel comfortable with, but I'd hate to have to, possibly, just the reality of maybe give back this lane and you don't want to go source a carrier right now. It's just something you don't want to do. You can have those what they're going to have to do and they know they don't want to do it either. And again, you may get, 3 out of the 5 that let you do it now, like Nicole said, may not once capacity, but at least you get a chance to get in the door, prove yourself, and maybe they'll roll with it. And like the model that you show, if you have a good I'm all about operations and structures. Like if you have a good structure and they really like it, they may just keep rolling with it. But it allows that a little bit more opportunity, and it allows great opportunity for, those 2-3 truck, 2-3 truck fleets that, those guys, some of those guys are awesome. We got the Kentucky Mafia is what we call them down in it's Dale and what's the other 2? There's 2 of them. They're all like cousins and they all live out in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky, but they know every automotive plant in Louisville, everywhere. You could call them and they'll come save you at any time.
Yeah. No, and trust me, we have a lot of friends, and I really genuinely call them friends in the industry, because if we're not able to do something, they are. And I know that if we can't do it, it's about the relationships. And also, for instance, you don't want to outsource something that is of high value or something of importance. You might outsource something that what, it's something that can be done or nothing crazy. Now to that customer, he probably won't like it, but if you're honest with them, look, I'm not like, for instance, us, even if you lose money, you pay that driver out of pocket or something, but the customer still gets their load when they wanted it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'd rather not reschedule it. If you can reschedule it, great, but we all know that there's some load that you just can't reschedule.
Mm-hmm. And that's the planning, that's the budgeting and planning ahead that allows you to pay guys out of pocket.
Yeah.
I came in, we were overpaying drivers right and left, but we weren't doing anything to be profitable in other areas.
Correct.
To gain that profit, to allow for that. I have an account, and if you have those honest conversations where, it was being paid, $50, $60 a stop, and we were having to move trailers right and left, and you got to pay an owner op, to do it for you. He's helping you out. And I talked to every one of the drivers that's running on that account and said, hey, if I drop this trailer or this stop pay to $30 a stop that you guys get paid, and we drop that other 20 into project management, some of these are 20 stop loads. It's going to allow us to not even think twice to be able to pay you to go, you know, deadhead to grab a trailer, whatever it is, and not have to worry about it. Is that something you guys, every one of them? Yeah, absolutely. And the efficiency.
We did a lot of drops for a big sports, I guess, store here in Houston with an A also. And it's all drops. It's nothing live loading, It's all drops, and they're a good distance out. The thing is, the drivers like those because they're consistent, and even if the pay may not be the greatest thing in the world, it's a guarantee when they drop, they're gonna pick something back, like a trailer or something. So they're like, okay, so I'm losing a little bit, but I'm gaining a little bit. But it's a big account. So that's something that not every trucking company can do, especially the smaller ones, you know. But I think if the drivers give the companies the trust for them to build for them, you know, like I think that was the hardest when we were talking about how we first started in the transportation, at least when we first started our trucking side. It was hard to hire drivers because number one, they don't know if you have work. And number two, they don't know if they're gonna make money at the beginning. So the first few drivers that we hired on are still with us. And these guys are now very, very, very well off. And to convince them to trust you at the beginning was very hard. So now that we talk to drivers and we tell them, look, the trucking industry is about trust. If you don't trust us, like for instance, the customer, if we give you a rate of $300 and we messed up, me personally, I'll take it. If it's a local run and you just mess up by a couple of bucks, okay, it is what it is. There's a lot of people that will revise the load or whatever. No, I messed up. Can you revise it? I've made mistakes. We all make mistakes and we have to eat them or chew them or whatever. And the drivers, I try to tell them that if I made a mistake in your paycheck, or if I made a mistake by not paying you right, or if you didn't like the rate properly, that's us. That's not the customer. That's not the broker. We're in charge of that. And I think building the trust with the drivers and building the trust with the customers, that was the hardest part at the beginning. You know, we had to lowball like rates that we were doing. Now that we're getting decent money on, I tell you what, in 2018, when we're still fairly, you know, fresh in what we were doing, we were low on our rates. Meanwhile, everybody was real high. I remember in 18, a friend of ours was telling us why we were so low, but we were trying to build trust and we were trying to build a relationship. It wasn't about being greedy. It wasn't about wanting to gouge anybody or rip anybody off. And that's what we were telling our drivers. Because they were like, for instance, what happens a lot is, and we get it, at the warehouse, you have two drivers parked, right? And they get out of the trucks and they're both talking.
Yep.
Hey, how much did you get paid to go to Dallas? Or how much did you get paid to go to, you know, Indiana? And then they start talking. That trucking company pays this, that, and I hear it all the time.
We just did that.
That conversation, we kind of wanted to eliminate as much as possible by being as transparent with them as possible.
Yep. I just sat my team down this week and I'm so huge on that, talking to these guys and letting them know, because they're out on the road, they go to the truck stop and they're like, you're getting paid what? Drivers like, you're getting paid what to go here? I got paid $3,500.
Yeah.
You know, then all of a sudden they start picking apart loads. Well, when you're not communicating to them on what you're my job is to see, you know, 6 months out, a year out, to protect their job. It's, you know, I'm going to make them money, you know, and my dispatchers and everybody else are going to do that. But that's what so when I call them, I say, hey, listen, F those guys. Those guys are getting $3,500, but when the market goes down, they're not getting anything. You're going to get the same rate. It's all consistent. You got to see it that way. You got that protection there. And, you know, when you talk to them about that type of stuff, be like, just stay in your lane, understand that. Yeah. And like you said, once they get the trust of it, the guys that buy in, then they're just amazing. But it's that trust. It's that a lot of times you're getting guys that the trucking industry can be, as a driver, could be expensive like that. So, I mean, it's just tough. You know, you could be really cruising and something could come up and it costs you 10 grand. Yeah. So you're going to deal with guys that just need that money like right now. And there's nothing, it's just a natural thing. Like, I got to have it. And if you could just get them to trust you, it goes a long way, but it's tough. I mean, you're on the road. They've got, you know, 11 hours a day to think.
Correct. And that, like for us, we had actually had a driver call me, a friend of our, I say friend because he's still a friend of mine, but there was an altercation, I guess he thought that we got into a few years, 5, 6 years ago. And I guess he deleted my phone number, stopped calling me. And this is over trucking stuff, right? This is work related stuff. And he called me literally, I think on Tuesday, and he just wanted to hash it out finally. And I talked to him for about 2 hours. And he asked me, he's like, man, he's like, I haven't broke $100,000 in over 5 years since I've been with you. And I was honest with him. And we have drivers right now that are at over 140, 128, 130, something. We have good drivers. We really do. And we try to protect everyone that we have. And what I was telling him is, he was telling me, he's like, well, I don't work for anything under, I don't go to Dallas, for instance, for anything under X amount of dollars. I'm like, well, that's why you're not working right now. I'm like, my job is to make sure that your wheels are turning. I'm like, right now, fuel is not an excuse. We can all say that now. This time in this day and age, fuel should not be an issue. So like for companies to charge crazy for drop charges, I mean, it's 6 miles to the gallon on average for a truck. You know, he spends on 50 miles, I think, what, $15, I think, $12 in fuel, something like that, one way. So I don't think the gouging should be there anymore. I know that everyone's trying to make a decent living, of course, but you have, because, like, for instance, I'm not opposed to helping customers. Like, we've actually done free transload for customers. Hey, man, I'm in a bind. I don't have no money in this load. Can you help me out? Like, yeah, everyone needs help. You know, sooner we needed help. We were there. And the truck drivers, too. I remember one time one of our drivers had a situation with his truck. He needed us, you know, to do something for him, and we helped him. I mean, everyone gets in that position. So I think drivers working 11, 14 hours a day, or especially being isolated in a truck, in a cab, and not talking to anyone, that gets their head spinning sometimes. So talking to them every now and then, telling them, hey, look, this is what I got next. This is what I got next. And
what your strategy is, and getting them involved in the strategy. That same customer I had, they're dying for trail. I mean, the head guy's like, text me, like, TJ, you got any trailer? Like, kind of joke, like, send me a trailer. I need trailers. And so we were talking about lowering our rates a little bit for him. And so I called him up and I had a plan. I said, if I go to my drivers right now and I say, you know, we're going to go up in rate, right? And the drivers kind of knew it. And I said, if I go to my drivers right now and I talk to them and I say, hey, we're going to go up in rate by this much per mile, you know, if I set that aside for each load, be transparent with it, we can buy 15 new trailers. Everybody was complaining about how old the trailers were, about this and that. And there was some pushback a little bit, right? Because it's just natural. But when we got those brand new trailers in, they're just like, oh man, I'm just gliding. You know, this is great. That there was 10 of them that agreed to, and I just told them straight up that I was going to get more money on this lane. I was going to get more money per load, but I'm going to use that X amount transparent to put back in order to justify this. And it ended up working.
A funny way that we did it, kind of, I say funny because it works for us to build a little bit of trust. A lot of drivers thought that we were gonna buy trucks at the beginning and put our own drivers, and you know, they were gonna make less money. That's a very common belief that drivers have. We did it the opposite. We started with the warehouse and we explained it to them. This is our truck. This is our truck note. But the difference between this truck is that everyone can eat out of it, because they're going to bring loads to our warehouse and they're going to pick up loads from our warehouse. So the idea was for our truck to feed everyone. Now I told them, if sooner or later you guys don't like, you know, whatever rates or whatever, then we might have to explore the option of helping ourselves if you're not helping us. And that's just, now, especially when we started getting busier and busier and busier, and they were making money and they're making, you know, they started seeing the results. They're like, okay, now we're seeing why they got the warehouse. Because it was not only helping us, it was helping them. You know, and then we're only about, 25 miles away from the port. So their fuel cost is very little. So it helps the customer with the rate. we don't charge them that. At least I don't think it's too expensive, both for the transload and the drayage. And I guess at the end, everyone should be happy, or at least I would hope they try to be happy.
So Martin, do you have friends that are also owners of warehouse anywhere else in the country?
Mm-hmm.
So we've
Yes, ma'am.
gotten a couple of questions in regards to how different markets are looking. One in particular was Kansas City. Are any of your friends able to give you some insight on, the increase of their business and what they foresee too with what's going on in different parts of the US?
I think if you're local, like for instance, Kansas City has some good railroads. If you're local and you have railroad access, you're good. You're gonna be because it's way cheaper to ship on a railroad than it is in a truck. And I keep telling our drivers that's our competition. Airplanes, that's expensive. To ship across the country, that's expensive. A ship is way cheaper than an airplane. But across country, if you're gonna deliver from California to, Miami or whatever, a train is probably gonna do it a lot cheaper. Now, does the customer want to wait a little bit longer? That's the kicker. But I think, like I said, if you're within a railroad city, I think for a while, I think it's okay. San Antonio is not a port city.
They're seeing an increase in business and
Some of them, yeah. Like a friend of ours that works in Georgia, in Atlanta, they're getting a lot of business.
Yeah.
Warehouse work.
So you got to think, and that's if you follow the automotive footprint too, you can follow the rail.
Yeah.
I mean, the Kansas City is huge when it comes to the automotive there. And you go by, you drive by a huge GM plant, a Ford plant, and you'll see about 15, 20 spurs out back with just all loaded cars. And that's a lot of how they do their storage, right? And how they ship. Right now, there's no rail capacity. And they only have so much room to store with those cars.
Right,
So
right.
the warehousing then just in general goes up from that angle. But also the cross country truck shipments now, go up as well, which again, like I said the other day, pulls that capacity. It stretches that capacity out. You're losing X amount of drivers that would be in a market usually are now spread thin because they're unavailable for 3 days at a time.
Correct.
3-4 days at a time now compared to what they would be before. And so you're actually, the weird part is you're seeing, depending on the niche, there's some teams like team drivers that are making some, but you'd think they'd be thriving in this, and they're not necessarily, because those loads that the team drivers used to eat up are now being able, because of the leniency, or being able to be put on a solo and things like that. And so it's a weird, I mean, I talked how capacity just go up and down. Sometimes it shifts, sometimes it just, stretches out, it shifts, and it just changes markets. And that's a great point with the rail spur. You really think about it, because that's how many times you see rail cars just sitting. I mean, a lot of that is storage.
And you have to be like, we had to, when March hit, honestly, we had to be flexible to what we were going to do. You had no choice. It wasn't just, okay, well, I just want to do this, or you didn't. It's not that you picked and choose, but it just so happened that before the pandemic, we were just getting a lot of palletized stuff and a lot of bundled stuff, crated stuff, totes. Mm-hmm. And then after the pandemic, it was just whatever you get. So you just, and it is what it is. Sometimes it's loose load, sometimes it's tires, sometimes it's, a little bit of everything. And being close to railroads, because like I said, we're like 11 miles from one railroad and like 6 miles or 5 miles from another railroad. And we're like 10 miles from another port, 26 miles from another port. So we're pretty close to everything. Having that mindset, knowing where to be, was important to us, because our rates were able to be cheaper. Had we been further away, possibly, our rates would have been more expensive, and the customers may have not gone for that.
Because your costs are higher, right?
Correct.
And how much easier was
sales
on that? I've heard people say, my big thing was always like, especially during COVID, like, if you've got 20 minutes to come on and put a post and complain about rates, you've got 20 minutes to call shippers. And well, there's so many of them, I don't have time that, so I'm like, here's the point. You get those local, set yourself up for success, right? If you're based somewhere, get that local group. Listen, Tony's top 5 shipper, Northern Indiana. We all know this, okay? I'm not going to say it.
Woo!
But the point is he knows, in Elkhart, which is a huge, RV industry, but just big manufacturing. He knows guys that run other plants, right? He knows that you can get that relationship there, to help yourself grow, but also you're not stretching your capacity out. Why chase if you're based in Northern Indiana, why would you chase a customer that ships out of New Mexico, right? Now you got to get all your trucks out. That you're stretching yourself out. And that's a great point. Location makes a huge difference in your success.
And what's funny is I remember when my grandpa used to tell me, just shut up and listen, and just learn. And one of the things that I learned in shipping and receiving was how to receive and transfer, do all the rail car switching at the warehouse. Man, that was valuable information, believe it or not.
Yeah, I don't even know.
And I learned how to unload a shit like a rail car. I had to sample rail cars, break the seals off the top and the bottom, or the bottom and the top, sorry. And I mean, I just learned a little bit of everything. I was nosy when I was young, I'm still nosy now, but the having to be flexible with the warehouse made me even nosier, because I'm like, okay, now what's out there? And with if you really want to see what's out there, the Port of Houston actually, at least I've seen, they have a list of everything that's coming. And I believe there's vesselfinder.com, where you can see all the vessels out in the ocean, if they're tankers, if they're containers, if they're shippers, if they're cruise liners. So you can see what's coming in and out, how many vessels are out in the ocean, where they're at least for shipping. Now, for containers, I mean, for trains, I'm not sure, but we try to be as proactive as we can. I'm like, is there anybody shipping? Who's shipping? Is it food? Is it, reefers during April and May? Refrigerated cargo was very, very, very good. And you just have to find it. Now, drivers might not like it because it might weigh a little bit more, but that's why you have the overweight permits.
So like I talked, I put out, I've said this, I don't know how many times, but like, you throw stuff at the wall, you're going to take credit for, 9 out of 10 times it doesn't stick. You're going to take credit for the one, but I put that video out where I freaking called it, man. I nailed it. And it was kind of just like I was more of just me like thinking like out loud, like this is what is happening. So this is what would work. Right. And that's how, if you think that way, like what is actually happening, you talked about loose stuff in that video. I even mentioned, customers that are there was a lot of production still going on, and then they were receiving it, but their customers weren't open. So you had a lot of inventory at that time that customers were trying to dump, trying to get rid of, trying to sell or store. So that's where you're getting that loose furniture. You're getting that, again, trailers play a huge role. I talked to 3 or 4 to this earlier, when I was on earlier with you, Martin. There's 3 or 4 customers I talked to. Each one went and rented a minimum of 40 trailers. Yeah. Themselves. Like went and rented 40 trailers just for storage to get stuff off their dock. And it was either because their usual warehouse was unavailable, or they just have so much product and they don't have the storage and the capacity to do it. But it's going to ebb and flow. But like you said, if you know where it's at and what's happening, you could take an educated guess and then ask around, right? You said be nosy, right? Talk to your customer, talk to.
I mean, like for instance, it was funny, but furniture was being shipped, right? So the obvious place to look was for who's shipping wood. So we went to see who's shipping wood, and we got lucky, and we actually got a lot of loads going, for wood shipments. And that was just one of those being nosy things,
My owner came over to me. He goes, all right, you want to find where the freight is? Think about this. There's
and also too, during the pandemic, it made sense because I was telling my wife, I'm like, well, people are not eating out. There's refrigerated stuff coming in. The refrigerator warehouse were busy. I'm like, it only makes sense to join the club.
Not only this, but think about this. He came over and made such a great point. Everybody got the stimulus package, right?
Yeah. Not
everybody lost their job.
Yeah.
There was a huge amount of people that still got it, that still made good money and still got it, right? So you're looking at like a $2,000 to $3,000 chunk here for families. Yeah. And he had like literally the data of what the number 1 through number 10 things that people buy within that $3,000 range. It was patio furniture, regular furniture, electronics, and look at every one of those just boomed. Everything in that $1,000 to $3,000 range, in that extra little cash that you had, right? That now you're at home, right? You need maybe more Wi-Fi, maybe you need an extra iPad, right? Because you're working from home. You got all these electronics. You got
maybe some tile because your wife's complaining. She doesn't like her backsplash.
Yeah, I had an extra room that she could just stay in now. I use that. But no, it made freaking sense. And I looked into it, and it was like, It was exactly, everybody was, oh yeah, we got some new furniture. We got electric. It was all right in that range. You weren't going to buy a new car, but they were buying, something within that range because of that extra cash.
And the trick was, honestly, like for instance, all the furniture that we got was in boxes. It was finding the way to unload the trailer as fast as possible without damaging anything. Like for instance, you try to cut time. Now, during the pandemic, with the good thing for the drivers, and they told me this, that the roads were clear. So they had no traffic. So they were able to go to, for instance, Houston to Dallas with very good time. Back, in the normal time, it was horrible. It takes you an extra 2 hours sometimes. But that helped a little bit of,
Isn't it normally?
45 for some reason, man. Especially the closer to Dallas or during the winter times, I see a lot of cars on the road. But I don't know. I do like going to Dallas, by the way.
We're already to the end almost of our show. So I have one more food for thought for you.
Okay.
So one of the reasons why we started talking about this concept of warehousing is, what if I told you today, Martin, that by 2025, with e-commerce and with what's going on in our industry, that there is a needed additional 1 billion square foot space needed. What does that say to an entrepreneur that's in this game? Like, what would you, by me predicting that, and that's true, just say it's true. What are you doing today to get ready for tomorrow?
Trust me, it's my wife. We're thinking about that.
It means Amazon's going to build $990 million of square footage of warehouses now across the country.
Yeah. Honestly,
Yeah,
because we've done Amazon shipments, I know that there's possibilities to do work for Amazon as well. I think if you're a warehouse and you're willing to do that extra, little work, it's not like dirty jobs or anything like that. It's just a little tedious work. That's all it is. But it's not hard work. If you're willing to do that, take that extra step, in 5 years, I promise you, in a warehouse, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. You just have to get creative. I won't give away all the ideas, but I see personally cold storage being important in the future. For some reason, cold storage sticks out in my head. I don't know why.
See what Robinson was doing? What they invested in that? The cold storage facilities they were making, they're basically they were looking like parking garages, basically, just units, across where they could just pull a trailer in. Yeah,
man, it's insane. Like, just for them to charge just to hook up the reefer, the prices are just out of this. Wow, and it is like, just for that, you can make up your money somehow. It's just, I don't think it's a greedy thing. It's just help. I firmly believe in helping others, and in warehousing, I think the cold storage is probably the way to go a little bit. Bonded shipments for customs, because the way I see customs working right now, we've had to wait a lot because of customs. So maybe have a little bit of government work wouldn't be too bad either for warehousing. I think they're actually quite busy right now.
Imagine what that's going to be like in 5 years.
Yeah,
the beautiful thing is, Nicole, about this is I always look for positives, right?
Right.
When I said that, Amazon's going to add X amount of square footage, they did. They just in Fort Wayne out by the airport, they just built it was like 200 jobs. I mean, every time they do that, they're bringing 100 to 200 jobs to like a community, number one. Number two, they're bringing more money to the people that do want to help, like Martin, and deserve to, make a little bit more. They got his, their whole family's involved in these types of things, because it does, getting in a truck and driving something, it's not anything. It's there's things in this industry you could do and not try that hard, but like warehousing, you got to be strategic. You got to be smart. Those people really deserve that. It's a smart thing. And I tell you what, this COVID thing really gave a lot of clout and ability to companies to know how valuable people at those shipping and receiving docks and those transloaders are. We talked with Kip, and I've seen it. And I've talked multiple times with multiple customers about how, when they lost their forklift drivers or the people in the docks to COVID, they went home or voluntarily, whatever it was, and they were paid more to be at home than working, and they didn't come back. And the amount of claims, I had the stat sheet the other day, the amount of claims, the amount of damaged product because of these inexperienced workers then that are coming in driving forklifts. I'll tell you right now, automotive industry, we got more holes in our trailers because the guy hit up and set it down on the, you know what I mean? Like, it's that right there. If you run those numbers and show, those companies are going to do it. They're going to look at how much that played a role in cost.
Yeah.
Now, how valuable is a forklift driver? How valuable is a warehousing guy in the docks? How valuable is that? Way more than what anybody would have thought.
Yeah, no, and it's funny you say that, but the way we started started to think about who we wanted to hire and how we wanted to hire was thinking about that. When you find someone valuable, hold them.
Mm-hmm.
I know salary might be an issue, you know, especially at the beginning, but if you can, you know, have someone of trust and grow with and just tell them, they have to have the patience, because this is a long game at the end of the day. I mean, if you want to be in business, it's a long game. And I try to tell the people that we have, I'm like, look, I promise you, as we grow, you grow. And it's just the truth. Now, the warehousing side of things with Amazon or with, you know, any other type of load that might be a little bit more tedious than the regular palletized or crated loads. I think if you're willing to do the work, it's very attractive. If you're willing to put in that extra effort, that extra 4 or 5 hours, it's attractive, especially when there's nothing else to do sometimes. Sometimes that's on.
This is a
Sometimes,
net.
yeah, and honestly, I tell my wife, after a good week's worth, you get an extra load, a few loads like that. That's just, you know, icing on the cake.
And that's the key. That's right now. I was just talking to Michael Nemi yesterday, and we were talking about stuff. And I Tony, I stood in your plant and told you about my idea with this. When things are booming and moving, and you got to have people keep up. There's nothing wrong with going to like incentive-based packages, in which, I mean, we've talked about doing it like in a billing department, right? When you got things moving and going, and you know, when you're a base salary, what's your incentive, right? To maybe reach out twice to the driver to get the BOL rather than once, and then let that sit for a month and not get billed. Things like that, right? A warehouse, right? You got a guy there that, man, we just use real with, right? We just can't afford. I know you need this X amount of salary, but I tell you what, if you can just look at it from our standpoint, if you can we'll get you this salary, and then if you can get X amount, you put something together out the door or whatever, whatever it is, like some sort of incentive package, that basically washes that, right? You know, because we're gonna make money more in this company, and then you get a bonus or whatever it is. Right now, when it's that busy, you will get people to get on the phone at 8 p.m. You'll get people to come in to transload a truck at 10 p.m. If you've got that, it's tough because you're pulling yourself out of normal, what you've always done, but people respond in way different ways than what you'd expect. And you can get your guys paid.
It's funny, but drivers like to know what, like I did one time, we had a meeting and I did a graph chart, I guess you could say, of drivers pay without putting names, you know, driver 1, driver 2, driver 3. And I gave them their file with their name so they could know who they were up on the screen. And so everyone saw that on bad weeks, everyone tanked. And on good weeks, everyone went up. And if there was one driver that didn't do good that week, okay, what was the reason?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you were late, you didn't show up. You know, we started telling that now. On the warehousing side, when we hired we have some good forklift drivers. They weren't damaging anything. They weren't hitting any, you know, containers or breaking anything. And then we had forklift drivers that were like, whoa, okay, maybe that's just not the right fit. It wasn't fair to the guys that were good to keep the guys that were bad, because somehow there was going to be conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I tell the drivers too. When they're not getting along, there's conflict with us. Because, for instance, if the two drivers outside don't get along, they're going to call me, hey, this driver said this or this driver said that, and you try to take care of it. Same thing goes outside in the warehouse. If someone blames another person for damaging a product or damaging a container, there's going to be conflict between them now. You blamed me or you pointed the finger. So, yeah.
To be a truck driver, it takes to be like an assertive personality, right? You got to be kind of assertive. And that also means you're kind of, what do you call it? You always kind of think you're right. I mean, you're going to deal with that. They're always going to think they're right in that situation.
Correct.
And the only way to kill it, you can't argue with them. They get all the time in the world. They'll argue with you all day long. I just kill them with facts. And so when you look at that, I love that you said that, Martin. So I want that in front of them. I do that same thing. I run the pay. Then what I do is I say, okay, this person that made the most this year had the most empty miles.
Yeah.
So that guy that complains every time he has to go 10 miles empty and won't do it, won't take a load, because that is making like the least amount of money, right? Because it's all a business standpoint. Why? Because the guy that went 100 miles just went and got one that paid $2,000 more. And so you're teaching these guys what it is to be an owner operator, because you get a lot of the company drivers that come in and you're showing what their empty miles were, how many days they stayed on the road, how many hours they used on their clock each day, what lanes they ran in. You can run all that data, and then they could sit down and break it down. They can't argue. They just be like, well, shit.
And now with the ELDs,
tonight, I thought I was doing good.
Yeah, and now with the electronic logs, at least it's easier to track their hours. Mm-hmm. And like I'll tell the drivers, I'm like, you're able to work 70 hours in a week. Mm-hmm. I'm like, most people can make a good living working 70 hours a week. If you're not making a good living working 70 hours a week, there's something wrong. Now, if you're only working 50, what are we doing or what are we not doing?
What's your goal? What's your goal or your mission?
Correct. That's what I think happens in the trucking industry a lot. Drivers buy a truck. I think their main goal is to buy a truck and have it paid off. And once it's paid off, it's all coming in. Mm-hmm. And that's not reality.
Replace the engine for $15,000.
Yeah. Yeah, we just had a driver do that for 22. Yeah.
But if they have that goal or mission, right? You got some of those guys that I've learned from. We got this one driver. The dude he ran e-logs back for whatever company he was with before they had to go to him. He does not take 72. He doesn't ever. He never has to take 34 hour. He never has to take a 34-hour reset ever.
Yeah.
He runs.
No, and speaking of warehousing, like growth and stuff,
like that Pacific, he knows exactly when he has to take off and run the exact amount of hours to get those rollback hours so that he never has to take a 34. And the guy is so mission based on that because he knows that's his business plan, right? If he could do that, he can make money. So he knows he's strategic about what loads he takes, what lanes they're at. He learns about it. He knows where they're at. That is,
you have to have a goal, and that's what happened. Like as far as 5 years from now and the growth, in the warehousing in the industry, we personally would like to be, an important player in the Houston area. We know there's a lot out there, and we're not going to be the best. We always say I would like to be amongst the best. And there's a lot of warehouses out there that are real good, and we would like to be, in par with them. It just takes a lot. And in 5 years, I really do believe that if you're open and you're able to do different things, and you'll be okay. At least in the warehousing industry, I think you'll be okay.
Well, I have to call it at that, gentlemen. So I know we could talk forever.
I can talk with Martin all day. It's the first guy we've had on.
Thing that we can talk forever. So,
thank you.
Martin, we want to thank you very much for coming on today.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Martin.
Background and experience.
Thank you.
So
no problem. And just also remember, when drivers go to warehouses, they need to have paperwork. It's funny how many drivers show up without paperwork.
Noted. Paper.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
We're gonna keep you on the queue, Martin. We got very few carriers that that are working like what you are. So it's very valuable stuff.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And we're up late. We're up all the time. Sometimes we're not, but yeah, we're up pretty much all the time. So we're here to help.
I'll text you.
Bye, guys. Bye, Tony.
Bye, Tony.
Bye, Tony. Nice to meet you guys.